My name is Stephen Stone. I'm a senior reviewer for the Absolute Sound and Hi-Fi Plus. Today I'm going to talk about the Audience 1+1 loudspeaker. I've reviewed the original version of this back in 2014. Since then it's had 6 changes in different versions. I'm currently on version 5. There was a version 2A. So I'm going to walk you through all the various changes that have gone through the Audience loudspeaker. I know this will primarily be of interest to people who have an Audience loudspeaker or are considering buying one. But it also should be interesting to those who want to see all the various changes that a high-performance manufacturer can make to a loudspeaker during its production. To get all the information right, I queried John McDonald, who's the CEO of Audience, and he sent me an email. And I'm going to read that email, and while I read it, we'll show some close-ups of the Audience 1+1, because that's a lot more interesting than looking at me reading stuff. So here we go. From the original 1+1, the V2 included a greatly improved driver called the A3S2-16. The original was the A3S28, which was a dual 8-ohm voice coil. The dual 8-ohm voice coil was very flexible, as it can be configured as a 4, 8, or 16-ohm by patch wire configuration. The newer version eliminated 8 solder points within the dual VC driver. Further, the voice coil wire in the newer driver was an OCC versus an OFC in the previous model. Lastly, the magnet and frame were refined. Version 2 was an offering of improved internal wiring by the Audience OHNO21AWG OCC hookup wire to the Audience OCC AU24SX loudspeaker wire. There was also a change in the damping weight of one of the passive radiators, and the original gold-plated brass binding posts were changed to tellurium. Lastly, the enclosure interior divider panel was removed along with the amended damping. V3 included a voicing circuit that was added to correct a baffle step response frequency dip around 450 Hz, and the Audience proprietary EHVP, which stands for Extreme High Voltage Process, was applied to the entire loudspeaker circuit. V4 included retuned passive radiators for improved bass response, ultra-low mass pure copper binding posts, and a second-generation voicing circuit that balanced out the frequency rise at the 1.2 kHz range. Version 5, which is the current version, includes a high-pass filter to eliminate frequency below 40 Hz, allowing the speaker to be played louder without driver damage during low bass passages. The result was actually an improved bass response. It also improved distortion levels for greater clarity. Even though these changes occurred over a number of years, it's probably more changes than you'd normally expect. The original driver and 1+1 loudspeaker version was designed by Audience engineer Roger Schecker. After the passing of Roger, John McDonald, who's the president but not an engineer, made some common sense changes by trial and error from the assistance of a number of supplier of the drivers. Later, Audience developed the EHVP system during the tenure of the new engineer. Lastly, Audience hired a new engineer, Phil Ducote, and he is the current master acoustic engineer at Audience. So, there you have it. That's Audience's description of all the changes. Now I'll give you my personal evaluations of all the various changes. Version 1 and version 2, I blew up. I put too much power through them, and since I change gear a lot, sometimes a preamp that has provisions for being volume control or no volume control gets at the wrong setting and gets installed. And I don't remember how I blew it up, but yeah, suddenly I looked and had the drivers with the formers practically through the front of the drivers. So I replaced V1 with V2, and I used them for several months and had a similar problem. Since V3, I have not had any issues with fragile drivers. And the latest version, V5, you can really play it loud without any signs of distress. I think eliminating frequencies below 40 hertz was a very good idea. Since I've always used the audience with a subwoofer, the low frequency extension, especially below 40 hertz, has not been something that really has been very desirable from the loudspeaker itself. So eliminating that has been a good thing. So there you have it, the evolution of the audience 1+1 to the current version. See you next time. Bye.